Yo, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. My setup has changed a little bit. The camera angle has also changed. The video is not going to change. So in today's call, I am reviewing a sales call from a YouTube automation offer that's doing around $250,000 a month in cash. The top closer is getting his calls reviewed. In this call specifically, you are going to learn how to pre-handle and overcome limiting beliefs from your prospects. So they're going to come into the call and say, I can't afford this. It's too much money. They're going to externalize responsibility as to the reason why they're not where they want to be on their job or their wife or their kids or their time or their money, whatever it is. You learn how to overcome those things in this call. This is the best call that I've ever posted on YouTube about pre-handling objections, overcoming fears, anxieties, limiting beliefs. So if you watch it all the way till the end and you take notes on what I'm saying, this will double, if not triple, your sales. Enjoy. All right, everybody. Let's have some fun. Let's get better. Can you give me the context on this call?
Yep. Webinar booking, lots of, basically younger kid, like a little bit, around our age, but a little bit younger. Lots of fear. Hit me with a pretty hard partner objection at the end of the call, was able to overcome that, and he piffed the next day, put down a 250 deposit the day before, and then next deposit. So that objection has always been my sticking point. So small win there with getting over that one. And then I feel like you'll see, I think, as we get into all the thing, but really sitting in the fear, I think I did a little better with that as well throughout the whole thing. So I'd just feedback on that if you'd like to kind of see progress or whatever.
Perfect. Let's do it. Good job on the close.
And rock and roll if you are. Yep. Excellent. So what I've seen works best on these calls is, just for starters, I want to get to know you a little bit better. I want to really find out what your goals are, where you're trying to go, all those type of things. And you may have seen from David's content and from the webinar that we've helped a lot of people do really well with our programs and everything like that. But there are some people that we can't necessarily help, and I hope you can also understand that portion. But if I'm confident that by the end of our conversation that we can help you, I'm more than happy to walk you through everything in terms of capital, expectations, mentorship, everything like that. And if not, I'm a pretty blunt and honest guy, and I'll still try to point you in the best direction that I can. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sounds fair.
Cool. So let's just start right from the top. What exactly are you looking to accomplish through YouTube automation? Is it having more time, making more money, or having more freedom?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. And which one of those three would you say is the most important for you?
At this moment, money, but in the end, probably time.
Okay. Why money?
I've been kind of in a right now.
Okay, so what I would do, because I don't want to just focus on money. When he says, I would probably say money, but also time. If you want to get it all encompassing, I would say what makes you say that, because then he can unpack what he means from what he just said. Because if you focus specifically on money, then we lose the time element of this.
Gotcha.
Patch financially, I got let go from my job.
Okay, sorry to hear that.
Okay, so for everyone watching, immediately it's externalizing. I got let go by my job. Therefore, it's my job's fault. Therefore, if my job kept me employed, I probably wouldn't be here. So just realize, like, the mentality that he probably has is externalizing responsibility, which is what would make sense as to why he would go to his spouse at the end of the call and say, I don't make decisions on the spot. I got to run it by her. It would be disrespectful if I took action without her permission, is essentially what they're saying. So there are things that you can pick up on in the sales process and pre-handle before we get to the end of the call when price is on the table and all of a sudden we look like Grant Cardone, like sleazy salesman. The nuances.
Thanks. And just the last 2 years, we had
now the reason that I point that out, guys, I know it's a very subtle thing, but when he says my job let me go, I'm in a tight financial position, a lot of the times these people will say, when you ask them what has kept you from getting to the outcome, like, let's say, what has kept you from making $10,000 a month online so that you can have the time freedom that you want? They'll usually say things like, well, I didn't even know that this existed. We've probably heard that before. So what they're really saying when they tell you that is someone should have told me what I should do, right? It's very much like victimizing my situation. It's not my fault. Someone should have descended from heaven and told me exactly how to get into YouTube automation for free, and then I would have thought about potentially doing it, right? But when you get them into that mindset of changing the way that they think, while also realizing that the way they view the world, the way they've taken actions up into this point is exactly what has them on a call with us stuck, that gives us a tremendous amount of leverage to change the way they think, act, and believe going forward. Francesco.
Do you actually address that like right away, or like Do you just like keep that in mind when you like
I
preamble
keep it in
object?
mind. I keep it in mind. It's like I'm looking at the writing on the wall based on what they're telling me. I'm not going to beat him over the head with the mindset stick immediately, but I'm just going to be aware that if this isn't handled and we don't have this conversation, he's going to stiff arm me at the end and say, I got to run it by my wife. Every single time.
Makes sense.
And we had kind of an insurance fiasco where they switched our plan on us, and it kind of threw us underwater. We've been fighting that appeal for like a year now, and
Okay.
it's
Once
kind
again, it's their fault, not my fault. Life is happening to me. Okay.
of rocky.
Because that belief is incongruent with him paying us $5,000 or $10,000. He doesn't have the right belief system. He doesn't have the right way of viewing the world up until this point. And so it's going to be our job as the leader to change the way that he thinks and give him a new perspective and a new identity that he can confidently step into. If he actually wants what he wants, what he says he wants at least.
Financially since then. So that's kind of where we are right now. And
Okay.
I've always had a entrepreneurial bug that I wanted to figure out.
Okay.
And
I've always had it. He didn't just wake up and pop out of the womb and say, I want to be a business owner, right? So this is where we get specific. How long specifically would you say?
training that I went through or that he put on the other night really spoke to me. And I
In
just
what ways?
I'd never thought about a faceless YouTube channel type
Mhm.
deal for it. I sold insurance before.
Is that so that was your job? I was gonna ask about that. That was your job
Oh,
before?
so no, I sold insurance and then I left that. I'm in the Missouri National Guard.
Okay, so don't assume, Sam. Anytime we assume and then they have to tell us, no, that's not it, it's actually this, we break the connection. So just be aware of that. Like if you want to ask them a question, then just ask them a question, but don't assume.
Yeah. Okay.
I was a recruiter for about 5 months. And during that time, we had a bunch of natural disasters and Missouri's budget got cut by like 75%. So I was first one in, first one out.
Yep, that type of deal. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and that was, when did you get laid off? Oh, you cut out for a second. When did you get laid off?
When did I get laid off?
Yeah, when?
Okay, sorry. Well, no, it's July. So technically,
Francesco, to your point, like at this moment, he's externalized so many times that one thing that you could say is, so what I hear you say is the reason that you're not in a good financial position is because your job laid you off. Or insert like inflation or whatever he's saying is like the external reason. And then I would come in under that and I would say, I don't hear a lot of ownership. Like I don't hear a lot of responsibility being taken on your end. What's the reasoning behind that? Right? Because if we're going to get into shifting the identity, it's like, in what way does you pointing the finger at other people empower you to actually achieve the life that you want? Right? AKA, like if we continue to hold on to this narrative that life happens to me and it's not my fault and there's nothing I can do, how are we ever going to reach the freedom that we desire for ourselves and for our family? Right? It's powerful. It's very advanced. I know that. But if you can get in the right state of mind and understand that we're not here to sell YouTube automation, we're here to sell them becoming the best possible version of themselves. And if they trust that wholeheartedly, they will buy from us. And you completely and totally separate yourself from every other salesperson they've ever interacted with.
July 1st would be my end date. They had some leave that I had to burn.
Okay, gotcha. So, okay, and then so that's understandable. So, and I hear you there. So, where do you need to be in terms of income on a monthly basis, or where would you want to be, I guess, in terms of income on a monthly basis with YouTube automation, like around
To
what,
be
say?
to be paycheck to paycheck right now with our expenses, it'd be probably 1,100.
Okay, so where would you like to be though? Let's an ideal scenario. I don't want you just to feel like you need to survive.
Okay. I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys. It's only been 4 minutes in. Is everyone tracking pretty good so far? What I'm saying? Okay, awesome. So just realize this. When we talk to these prospects, we're going to get the first bucket of personality, which is this guy, where he says, bare minimum, we need to make $1,100 a month. Does this person operate in abundance or scarcity? Scarcity, right? If someone is in fear And in scarcity, does that lend to them giving us $5,000 at the end of a 45-minute call? Probably not, right? So we can even temperature check the person that we're talking to of what state of mind they're operating in from this question. Where do you need to be every single month with YouTube automation? If he says bare minimum, or like if I could even make 3K a month, that would be a win for me. What they're really saying is, I don't believe in myself. I struggle with the concept that that would even be possible. Or I struggle with the concept that if you guys gave me the keys to the castle, that I would be able to actually use them. I don't know if I could follow through. So throughout the sales interaction, we're going to have to build belief in that person that they can step into who they want to become. It's not as scary as they think it is. They just need to take our hand. That's the approach in the sales process. But on the flip side, you're going to talk to somebody where you ask them, what do you want to make every single month with YouTube? And they say 30 grand a month passive, where they're overly confident, right? They're going to have a warped perception on reality, where they think they're going to get there no matter what, with or without you. And if you don't change that dynamic, they're going to stiff arm you at the end of the call with objections. So that sales process is going to be very focused on show me the facts, right? Knocking them off the pedestal, getting very granular on where they are right now, what they've actually tried, and what's held them back from achieving the outcome. AKA, why hasn't this happened yet? You're so confident, you're so skilled, you're so great at what you do, everything that you touch turns to gold. Why haven't you got there yet? Right? It's a very disagreeable sales process to get them to submit to you. Okay? So just be aware of that. Francesco, what's up?
Just have a quick one on that. When it comes to like a young guy like this, in order to raise belief, like would you mention like a testimonial? That's what I used to do on like e-com offer, especially with like young guys when they say, "Oh, I want to make at least 1K," something like that. I usually just mention like a testimonial relate to their situation and then be like, "Okay, so what do you think that you can do?" or something along those lines. Like,
In the
what's your
pitch.
in
In
the pitch?
pitch only. Reason I say that, if you want to, in discovery, you can leverage your own personal story to an extent to build belief in them that it is possible. But we want to refrain from talking about who we are, what we do, results we've gotten for other clients until we're certain that they're in a position where they're willing to take the ownership on and commit and put a line in the sand. Otherwise, we can talk about how Johnny started a YouTube automation channel and made $30,000 a month. And he could say, like the prospect, yeah, that sounds good, Francesco. How much does this cost? And in that moment, you can't say, oh, I'm not even sure we can even help you yet. That doesn't work because you're talking about what we do, how it works, amazing results, aka you're saying we can help you. Does that make sense to everybody? That's traditional sales.
And I think too, Francesco, so for some context on my side, like I think the reason why I didn't want to puff this guy up yet, just because like at 4 minutes in, I kind of already had the impression that like I was like legitimately like kind of getting sad at this point talking to this guy because he's kind of like in this like you see he's kind of like droopy, like not really that confident in himself at all. And I didn't want to really focus on results yet. I wanted to talk about him and why he was in the position that he was. So I wanted to really drill onto that first before we even moved into that section, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And if we want to get deep into the psychology, how do you feel that this guy is showing up for his wife and for his family, being in a state of mind where he continues to externalize responsibility, which would lend me to believe that he tells his wife that he's going to achieve a certain financial threshold or achieve a certain physique or achieve a certain outcome in life for the family, and he continues to not do what he says he's going to do? Like, what kind of impact does that have on his relationship? What kind of trust is there? Are there fights and arguments? How is this bleeding into his life? Who else is this affecting outside of just him? We start to realize when we focus on the identity of the person that the amount of money in the bank account isn't the sole motivator here. It's them becoming a better person. And if they can do that, the money will be a byproduct of that. But these deeper conversations, that's what stirs the emotion on the inside of the person, where they start to feel urgent in solving the issue.
I want you to thrive and do really
Yeah,
well.
I'd like to get to 10 to 15 a month.
10K a
Yeah.
month? Is there a reason behind that number?
My question
That's
is,
the
when was the
standard.
last time you made $10,000 in a month? He says never. I'm like, okay. If we could make $5,000 in a month with YouTube automation, is that a good goal to start with? He says yes. Now, the reason that I would do that is because this guy already doesn't believe in himself. And the last thing that I want him to think at the end of the pitch is, does this program guarantee me making $15,000 a month? That makes it a lot more scary and too good to be true of a decision. Does that make sense to everybody? Because what a lot of salespeople will do is they just run with the first number they get from the person. Oh, you want to make $100,000 a month? Yeah, we can totally help you do that. And then we get to the end of the call and the person thinks, man, this guy's like, they can do everything. And we just can't. We can't do that. And we're lying if we agree to that narrative. However, if this person has the right belief system and they're willing to do everything in their power to make YouTube automation work, and they're resilient and they get up when they fall down and they don't throw the towel in, eventually they can get to a position where they have the freedom that they want. But it's only if they do everything necessary. Just like going to a gym, there are going to be fat people in the gym and there are going to be people who have six packs in the gym. What makes a difference? They're all using the same equipment, right? So the question is, are you going to become the type of person who is consistent over the long term and shows up even when they don't feel like it to make sure that the program does work? I'm not selling the program. I'm selling you becoming the person you want to become. Any questions on what I've said? I've given you guys a lot in 4 minutes. Anything not make sense? Everyone feel like this is a good use of time? Nod your heads. Excellent. All right, let's keep going.
Number that I heard when I was doing insurance. It's just kind of the way that I base production numbers. And with this, it sounds like the initial investment per video is a lot less than it was for the sales that I was doing previous.
Okay. And then your income when you're working, what were you bringing in per month usually?
When I was doing which one, for insurance or for
Your latest one?
I was making close to 5.
Now, I want to point out something that he just said. What he really just said to you, Sam, was it seems like YouTube automation has less risk
Yeah.
than something else I could try.
Yeah.
Right. So when people think that way, what does that lend us to believe about them? Do they live life outside of their comfort zone or inside of their comfort zone?
Dangerously inside of it.
Yes. So when it comes to us saying it's $10,000, you ready to jump in? There's going to be a lot of pushback because their entire life they've said no to getting outside of their comfort zone. So if we don't have those conversations where I get him to realize that his way of thinking and acting and believing has put him in a position where he's dissatisfied with his life and who he is as a person, I'm not going to have a lot of leverage to overcome his objections. And when I start trying to, he's going to feel like I'm trying to sell him and I want to take his money rather than helping him. Okay. So I am taking notes. Every time I hear things like this, I'm taking notes. And then eventually we're going to get to a crossroads where it's like what I have heard you say up until this point, there are some red flags that I've heard come out of your mouth that have me apprehensive in moving you into what we do and how it works. Would it be cool if we address those things one by one? You can say that. And then you just lay into them because that's like the nice versus kind frame. Has anyone heard the difference between being nice versus being kind? Okay, so I'll give you an example. This is why like analogies are so powerful in sales. It's because it puts me and the prospect on the same side of the table, where it's like we are collaborating here. I am not here to demean you or make you feel like you're not where you should be. I'm here to help you. So as an example, I would ask, do you know the difference between being nice and being kind? They say yes, or they say no. It doesn't matter what they say. So The difference between being nice and being kind is I want you to imagine that Sam and I are at a restaurant with a big group of friends and we're eating. And I notice that while Sam is talking, he's got a big piece of food lodged in his teeth. There are two things I can do in this moment. I can pull him aside, even though it's kind of embarrassing and uncomfortable, and I don't know how he's going to react, and say, hey, Sam, I noticed you got a big piece of food in your teeth. You need to remove it so that you don't get embarrassed in front of all these people. That's an uncomfortable thing to do, right? That would be the kind thing to do in this situation. Or we can take the nice route where I don't want to put him on the spot. I don't want him to be embarrassed. So I just won't say anything. So in this interaction that you and I are having right now, do you want me to be nice or do you want me to be kind? I want you to be kind. In that moment, when they agree to that narrative, you now have full authority and permission to say whatever you want to say to them to get on the same page. Because if you don't, and you take the nice person position in the sales call, you're going to get to the end of the call and all the limiting beliefs that they've had their entire life are going to show up in a big way, and they're not going to make the changes that they need to make. And they're going to stay in the same spot that they've been in for the last time frame. Okay? That's why I say selling is serving, right? We have a job to do. Marketing can't do all the heavy lifting for us, sadly. If they did, we would be credit card processors. We could use AI, right? There wouldn't be much need for us in this role. So there's a tremendous amount of responsibility, and that's why it's so important for us to be continuing to invest in ourselves and develop our skill sets and get to the next level in our own life, because it gives us the conviction that we need to help these people, right? Because they've been lied to or they've lied to themselves. They're deeply ingrained in their own way of thinking and acting and believing that has not yielded the results that they want. We're not talking to 7 and 8 figure CEOs, corporate executives who have built businesses. We're talking to people who have never taken a risk in their entire life, for the most part. Okay. All right. Let's go to 10 minutes before I talk again.
5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And would your end goal then, and are you looking for work right now, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. So your end goal would be eventually to leave this 9 to 5 type job and go into YTA full time. Would that be accurate? Okay. So then for you, David, how long has that been the goal for you to make that 10K a month online and leave that 9 to 5 environment so you can have more freedom and more time and more money, I should say, not just with YouTube automation, but like how long has that been a goal in your life for?
Probably since I got married. So about
Which was
2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So why has that not happened yet, do you think? Why have you not gotten to that 10K?
Best question. Is your wife aware of this goal? Now, why would I ask him that?
To pre-handle the objection.
Because he
In
seems
what,
to be
in
the
what
main
way?
provider. Oh,
That's a good angle, Amy. That's a good angle. Like, is she pulling the weight financially? That's a good way to think about it. But why would I say, is she aware of this? Francesco, I think you were onto it. You said pre-handle, but in what way is that pre-handling the objection?
Because I mean, if she knows about this goal, then you can be like, okay, is she supportive, and kind of tease into that. So then if he gave like third party objection, you can just be like, I know she is supportive, as you mentioned before, so you can put responsibility to issues.
That is the traditional way to go about it. That, in my opinion, if it isn't done correctly, won't work. So let me tell you why I'm asking that. Because what if she is aware? She's been aware for 2 years, and this guy has brought up multiple times that he's going to start a business, he's going to take action on his goals, and he's done nothing about it. How does that make her feel? Because he's going to come to her and he's going to say, I just got off the call with this guy on the internet and he said he can solve all of our problems for $10,000. Should we do it, baby? Or what do you think we should do? If we don't have the proper conversations, right? So if we want to go deep on the psychology, I would ask, is she aware of this? He says yes. To what extent? To what extent is she aware? Have you brought opportunities like this up to her in the past? How did those conversations go? Right? Have you taken the step as the leader of the house and invested into acquiring the skills that you need, or have you not? No, I've not. What kind of impact has that had on your relationship, being that you've said multiple times that you want to make a change and you want to create the freedom, but you've done nothing about it? Right now, they're in opposition to each other. They're not on the same team, because in her mind, the way she views it is, this guy has came up to me multiple times and said that he's going to change your life and put us in the best possible position, and he's lazy and he's comfortable and he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. How could I trust him? Right? That's like deep psychology. So I pin him, like the 1.0 version of David, against the guy he wants to be. Right? Because when we get him to admit that he doesn't do what he says he's going to do, I go into, in what way is that negatively impacting your relationship? Now this is bigger than just money. We're not just talking about making 10K a month with YouTube automation. We're talking about him. And you will set yourself apart from every other salesperson they've ever interacted with. Because most of the time, these people, they don't open up about this stuff to anybody. It's like a NPC. Kind of just go through the motions, right? But the way I would describe this is, this person at the end of my call cannot be the same person they were before the call started. Otherwise, I failed. They cannot think, believe, act the same way that they did before the call started. Because that's when we get into the program, and maybe they give you their money, but they're not resourceful. And then they message Lindsay or they message Sam and they say, this is not working. No one's getting in contact with me. This doesn't work. I want my money back. But you didn't instill them with the right belief system to continue to push forward and figure things out. Right? That starts with you on the sales call. You're setting the expectations on how this is going to go. And the big thing is, when it comes to handling objections at the end of the call and getting very uncomfortable and continuing to push and not quitting and not giving up, what you're really saying in that moment is, we are the best possible team. We are trustworthy. We will do everything in our power to serve you in getting what you want. I am a direct reflection of David Amari. Because people will say, I've been on multiple calls with other teams and I haven't pulled the trigger. I'm like, where are these other people? Like, do you want to work with a company that would just let you off the hook and throw the towel in on you? What type of results are you going to achieve working with a team that does that? And that's not to say that I'm some like greaseball who sit on a call for 5 hours and try and shove somebody in the door, right? If I notice that they're unwilling to commit and they keep saying, yeah, you're right, but I just can't, blah, blah, blah. Eventually there comes a point of no return. But when we get to the end of a call like that, I'm like, hey, brother, I ain't going anywhere. There is a red button at the bottom right-hand corner of the Zoom, and you're going to have to click that button in order for this conversation to end. But I want you to recognize that when you do that, and you wake up tomorrow, and you look at your bank account, or you look in the mirror, and you're frustrated with what you see in your own life, I want you to think back to the conversation that you and I just had, and the fact that I gave you an opportunity to take my hand and go all in on yourself, and you willingly chose not to do that. And that's a tough pill to swallow. I promise you, they will come back weeks, months, years, and pay you. Because it's the truth.
10K month goal yet?
Not the right avenue. I tried to fail forward and I did it the wrong way.
Fail forward. I'll go into that more.
So when I was in insurance, we had to do a lot of lead spend, and I was getting kind of desperate, so I upped my lead spend to about $1,000 a week. And I wasn't making enough sales to really afford that, so I just kind of
Yeah, this guy's saying so many things. I'm done with the feedback for now.
bottomed myself out.
So that was in your 9 to 5 job.
Well, that was no, my 9 to 5 was here recently. That was the recruiting thing, and that wasn't a so the 9 to 5. I mean, I got laid off.
Yeah. So let me maybe rephrase that. So have you tried at all to make money online via any vehicle so far? Like, what have you tried to make money outside of a 9 to 5 structure online?
This would be my first.
Okay, but he
Okay, so
said,
you
he said
haven't
this goes
tried
for 2
anything
years
outside of
now,
this, no.
right? That's why that question of, is your wife aware that you've had this goal for this long to the fullest extent is so important. Because what he just said now is, I've done nothing. I've done nothing. And if you pin him on that, he might say, well, I didn't even know this existed, which is such a lazy way of getting out of answering the question. It's not true. Every single one of these people have seen all the influencers, all the gurus, all the ads on their Instagram 24/7. They've gone through all the deep dives of scrolling in the content and going through and opting into the funnels and getting the free handouts and doing all the research. Everyone has done that. This is not 2020 when high ticket just became a new thing. These people have been sold, they've been put in positions where they've been asked to take a risk and they've chosen not to. So just realize that. You know, it's like going out on a date and the person you're talking to is like, this is the first date I've ever been on. I'm like, wow. How old are you? You know, like we can't take what they say at face value every time because usually they're lying. Francesco.
Well, would you really ask like what have you tried in terms of like vehicles? Because then you focus really just on the vehicles, right? Like
What would you do differently?
no. I'm just saying like based on the code that we are reviewing. Like, would you not ask like what have you done so far in order to get to X, Y, and Z goal? Because if now like you just focus on the vehicle itself.
I think he's trying to get there. It's the same question. Could be asked a little bit differently if that's your preference, but the idea is the same.
Okay.
Additional avenues to make money, just basically research at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when he
Can
says
I ask
this is the first thing I've ever tried, Sam, what would be a good response to that?
Why?
How could you leverage what he's told you so far for that to land better?
How is that else, or how else is that showing up in other parts of your life?
No,
Okay.
hasn't this been a goal of yours for 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
2 years? What's kept you from doing more? 2 years is a very long time. Right? This is where analogies could come in. Sam, if I came up to you 2 years ago and I told you I wanted to lose 50 pounds, but over the last 2 years I haven't done anything, right? I haven't downloaded any workouts or nutrition plans. I haven't gone to the gym. I haven't hired a personal trainer. Would you really say I've done everything in my power to lose the 50 pounds? Or do you think I could have done more? No, I could have done more, right? So analogies allow us to shift the focus off the person where they don't feel personally attacked. Where it's like, no, that makes sense. You definitely should have done more. But then I would go on to the person. Once I get the admission from them, I should have done more. I'm like, so what's kept you from doing more, being that this has been a goal of yours for 2 years? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. All that research and everything, how much money have you been able to
Because
generate
where
doing?
you could come in with that whole, how else is this affecting you outside of just making money, is if he says, I'm afraid to fail, right? Because it's not just with starting a business. It's in every area of his life when it comes to stepping outside of his comfort zone. So I'm like, you being afraid to fail, in what way is that negatively affecting your marriage? Right? That's deep, very deep. And he'll go there if you lead him there. And you'll start to
Yeah.
realize the words that come out of your mouth will either get you paid or not. That's it.
Yeah. That's where we eventually went to. So that was the track we eventually went down, which was I'd never really gotten deep down that rabbit hole before, but it's powerful if you frame it correctly, to your point.
Where did you get to? What did he tell you?
He told me something that he feels like insufficient as a man
Mm,
as a kid too, and as that was like a trigger word for me, and I was like, okay, let's talk about this. And then I asked him kind of in what way, just peeled back, peeled back, peeled back, peeled back,
yeah.
and and that was like, because I mean, I don't know, I've done that work with a lot of people for a long time, and so I know, like, at least I think I'd like to know a lot of the core things that result from that. And then I got to the point where I was like, how does that make you feel that you're not the type of man showing up for your wife and your child that you could be? And then he really kind of just, spun out from there, or not spun out, but he got deep in terms of everything there. And I kind of asked him, like, just really, that's where I kind of sat earlier from
Yeah.
what I.
Yeah. That's really good. But that's why I'm saying, like, we're not selling YouTube automation. It doesn't matter how our YouTube automation works or how much money you can
Yeah.
make from it.
Yeah.
The person who gets on the call that doesn't believe in themselves, that comes from somewhere, right? That's a past experience. That's mommy and daddy. That's I got bullied really, really bad in school. So that's what you're contending with on the call. It's not that he doesn't have the money. It's the
Yeah.
belief in himself, right? So as an example, you go deep enough down that rabbit hole, I'm asking questions like, did you ever imagine that you would become the type of man that would make your wife feel that way? That's a real question to ask.
Yeah.
When you look in the mirror and you see a reflection, do you see a man that you respect? Now, you can't just ask a question like that up front. It takes time to get the depth and the leverage with the person. But when you start having conversations like that, the game changes. And when you get into the pitch, they're already saying, like, hey, dude, like, you don't have to sell me. Like, I'm all in. What do I need to do? How do I get started? It's not, how can I position the pitch and answer all these 55 questions to, like, guarantee their success and then they'll pay me. The game changes at that point.
Yeah.
The way I described it is like, if I can get the prospect to feel like the house that they're currently living in is on fire, every wall in their house is on fire, and they are the one with the gasoline and the matches in their hands, and I sell the fire extinguisher, does it matter how much the fire extinguisher costs? It shouldn't. Okay. But am I able to get that type of depth in the conversation to create a room where they open up enough about themselves so that I can help them? It's very advanced, but I can teach you the right questions to ask to be able to get there. And then ultimately we will make way more money because of that.
Doing it that way.
I'm gonna skip ahead. Good job so far.
You asked out when I was 14 or whatever, like, affect the pursuit of me wanting to get that myself. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and you probably felt, and it didn't make the nerves go away, right? Like, you're probably still scared in terms of, when you started first dating your wife, I would imagine, right?
Not we have our family has known each other for 20 years.
Yeah,
so
it's just
not
a
weird.
little bit different though. Like, just
Yeah.
romance kind of just has that, different feeling than
Yeah.
friends and your family stuff. I get that though. But after, actually, like, I guess it was worth it though. I mean, you ended up with a wife that you love, I assume, and a child and all those things. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it was worth it to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And so if you would have allowed that, oh my gosh, this girl might break my heart to get in the way, then you wouldn't have the life you have now, right?
No.
So what I would challenge you with is, how is this any different? Because it's really not at the end of the
So
day.
when you notice
It's all
that
the
they're
same.
kind of just like monotone, like looking at you like a sad puppy dog, and they're like, yeah, and they're not very engaged in what you're saying, I'm like, brother, are you agreeing with me just because you think I want you to agree with me, or how do you actually feel? Amy?
I just wanted to ask Sam, is there any like particular point you like to skip to for us to watch? I love dissecting this whole call. If we had 2 hours, Tristan, I would be here all day just see beginning from end. But I do want to see any like highlighted points that Sam wants us to like go over and just see.
I can send you the recording, Amy, if you'd like to. I think probably
How
skip
about the
ahead
objection?
like maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, you want to go? Yeah, let's go to the objection. Let's go there. Which is all you guys personally too. So you have a triangle of expert program, the freelancer list, and then we would basically go into Amari Academy, bring it down to 4,000. Just because we see that students who make decisive changes get the best results. So it's almost half price. So from 15 down to 9, and from 7.5 down to 4. So how does that?
One price point. And be quiet. Don't over-explain. Don't give them any extra context. Just say, hey, program is 7K or whatever you want to say, 8K. But on this call, we bring it down to 4K one time, and just be quiet. How does that?
But we discussed what products we discussed. I laid out done for you and done with you.
So this is something that we continue to work on together. I don't want to give uncertain people options ever.
Good point.
Because they're already uncertain. So I don't want to say, do you want to try this, or that? I just want to say, we're going to do this one thing. Are you willing to take my hand? So we need to create a process or a system throughout the sales interaction with the person where we take a judgment call. It's like a crossroads, middle pitch, whatever you want to do, where it's like, we're going all in on DFY and I'm pitching him 10K because of X, Y, and Z. And that's where you have to take the ownership as the leader. And worst case scenario, we can back down later.
Okay.
If it's like
Sounds good with me.
financially not a, but I don't want to give him a bunch of options. He's gonna be like,
Okay.
oh, I don't really know. Like, I got to talk to my wife about this, and we'll see, and we'll pray about it or whatever. I just
Yeah.
want to be like, hey man, this is one thing we're doing. You ready to rock and roll? Let's do it. No complexity. Simplify.
How does that land with you?
I can't afford
Nice.
either one.
That's his belief. That is his belief. Because Elon Musk looks at an investment that's $4,000 or $10,000 or $100,000, and he says, I can't afford it because of X, Y, and Z. How come he views it differently than you do? What if I told you that the reason we're on this call right now is because you've been telling yourself that you can't afford X, Y, Z in your own life? Right? How much longer do you want to be the guy who gets in front of decisions like this and chooses to put limitations on what he can and can't achieve? That's why getting deeper into the psychology of what it looks like with his wife, where he continues to tell her he's going to do something and he doesn't do it, and how that shows up and how that affects their marriage, and how he's dissatisfied with that, and he wants to step into becoming the man who can confidently commit and lead and burn the boats and achieve the outcome and build the family that he desires to build.
Right now.
Okay.
I
Good job sitting in there and not being quick to like word vomit on him and panic. The silence is good, right? Silence is confidence. Silence is, I've been here many, many times. And although you have a lot of baggage and a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty, I can handle that. I'm here for you.
Okay, that's not a problem. So when you say you can't afford it, does that mean you just have the money and you need to run and come up with it, or you don't have anything in any like credit, savings, loan, anything like that? Like what did you mean specifically from that?
I've got 2,000 in credit.
Okay,
And this guy
that's
pays
available, that's
4K,
liquid?
right?
Yeah.
So just see, he's lying. But that's why framing it is so important, right? Because there are two types of people in this situation. There's the person who says, I can't afford this, so I'm not going to do anything. And that person stays where they're at. And then there's the second person who says, although I don't have the liquid cash right now, and this is going to put me in a tight position financially, I will choose to become resourceful enough to find the money, because I know that if I get into this program, I will acquire the skills that I need to create the freedom that I desire, where looking at an invoice like this in the future will not be a problem. So out of these two people, which guy do you want to be? That's how you handle that. But you got to do the upfront work here to position yourself where you can say those types of things here.
I mean, yeah, I'd have to.
Okay, we only have 1 minute, so Amy, sometimes my calls go like that. The reason
All right,
being
guys.
kind of breaking up a foundation because we can only build a house on a good foundation. I can't start with the roof. Like the objection handling is great, but if everything else is messed up, it's not going to do anything. So like teaching him and going through everything step by step and giving him the feedback and helping him to look at it differently to where he asks better questions to where the objections don't even come up at the end is important. Because if I'm only dealing with the symptom being like, oh, I can't afford it, I need to think about it, let me talk to my wife, that's a symptom of a bigger problem, being that we didn't have the necessary conversations to build the internal urgency where he decided to commit regardless of what it cost. Does that make sense? So it just takes a little bit more time. As we get better and better and better, then we can focus on different parts of the call. But the better he can get at doing what we talked about on this call, even though it took a tremendous amount of time, the better he'll be at the end of the call to be able to handle those things and overcome those things. Good?
Yeah, I always think Sam does such a great job, and then when you like give him pointers, I'm like, oh shit, like I need to
I
sharpen
believe that too,
my pearls.
girlfriend. I was
Like
right there with
I
you. Trust me.
know, Sam,
Yeah.
like you don't do no wrong to me, and even though you're talking about the emotional aspect, I feel like you're doing well, but I love that you always make room for improvement. I just learned that I'll never overshare moving forward, and yeah, just to gauge more in that type of conversation. And it just depends. And once again, I'm just a setter. So until I get to that point, I feel like I can definitely hit them with a framework like what you guys are teaching. But in Sam we trust, yes,
Amy, do you know who, well, obviously, you know who Michael Jordan is, right?
Yeah.
So I've studied Michael Jordan a lot. Like I like love his mentality and everything around that. So he has a trainer by the name of Tim Grover who who wrote a really good book called Relentless a couple years ago. I'll recommend that to everybody on here. And oh, that's so cute. And so that's cool. Fun fact. And but basically when he couldn't get through the Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics, he hired Tim Grover to get him over that hump. And that's how I view Tristan with me. So
Wow. Okay.
Jordan was a great
Exciting.
natural talent, but it was until he got Phil Jackson and Tim Grover that he didn't win anything. Natural
Oh,
talent only gets you so far. Whatever I have can only get me so far. So that's
right.
why there is always more work to be done. There's always more ownership to be taken. I'm not a finished product at all. So don't put me up on a pedestal. I'm just like you guys.
I believe we're not in our final form, y'all. So I'm excited to learn more and to just grow with you guys.
Let's do it. 250K, 350K, here we come. Let's make
Ooh,
some money.
350K. Ooh.
Let's make it
Can we
happen.
pop that